The third and final function of the self that we'll talk about in this unit is going to be self knowledge. And self knowledge is all about how we know ourselves, right? Now, we said that how the self gets developed is by these early experiences, and as you get older, you start to kind of explore your world on your own. You get to quote unquote find yourself, and that's what makes the self, and that's true. But what we have to figure out is that how we know what we like, what we dislike, is based on focusing on who we are. So it's basically like taking time to reflect. And one thing I'm going to say is that not a lot of us take a lot of time to reflect. And I often tell my graduating seniors, you should really just take a second and think about how much you've learned, right? Because you're always in the hustle and bustle of, daily life, of exams and finals and graduation. And I always tell them, like, just take a sec, take 15 minutes and just reflect. And that's what we mean by self-knowledge, all right, is focusing on the self. Now, there's a couple of different ways that we know about the self. All right, the first is self-awareness theory. Self-awareness theory is where you compare yourself to some sort of internal standard that you set. So, like an example that often gets thrown around a lot is your morals or your own personal integrity or ethics. All right. So, what's going to happen here is, let's say you do something, I don't know, bad. Let's say you cheat on a test. All right. If you cheat on a test, you then have to kind of reconcile that. And what you do is you look at where you are now. So let's say this is where you are. This is where you are now. You're up here. All right. And let's say you I don't have any room for that. Let's just do it down here. So let's say you cheat on a test, right? So on an ethical standard that you set for yourself, this is like 0, meaning you're going to kill someone. This is like 5, meaning like you're the best angel ever. If you cheat on a test, let's say that puts you here. So this is you now cheating on a test. And let's say, so you're a 3. And let's say you want to be here. You know you're not perfect, but you're better than that. You want to be a 4. This is where you want. This is your standards right here. And what's going to happen is, if there is a mismatch between the two, so they don't align, they're not the same number, what's going to happen according to self-awareness theory is that we are now motivated to change that. We're now motivated for change. Think of like this. It doesn't have to be about morals. Let's think about standards in terms of like weight. Let's say you look at yourself in pictures and you're just like, wow, I really look overweight, right? So what you're doing is you're trying to motivate yourself for change, where if you weigh, let's say 200 pounds and you want to weigh, let's say 136, I don't know, there's clearly a difference there. And what we're going to do in self-awareness theory is evaluate that, all right, and say, yep, they're not the same, let's change it. Now, what happens if they are the same? Let's say that you're like, well, I weigh 136, and that's what I want to weigh. Well, then there's no impetus for change. There's no reason for you to change yourself because you are where you want to be. All right. And finally, if you want to weigh 136 or you want to be a 4 and on the ethical scale, and let's say you're a 5 on the ethical scale, or you weigh 120 and you should weigh 136, as long as you're healthy, you know what? No need to change because you're better than your standard. All right. And so that's the way self-awareness theory works. Now, what's cool about self-awareness theory is it's really easy and creative to manipulate this in the lab. All we have to do is put a mirror in front of you. Think about what a mirror does. By looking at a mirror, you are now forced to reflect on yourself. I don't know if you guys have ever had this situation. I know I've had, where I have done something completely just wrong or stupid or whatever. I remember one time very vividly, I'm trying to justify it now, I guess, but I was super, super tired. And I yelled at my kid for no reason. He did something so minor, and I just yelled at him. And I was, ugh. So after it was all taken care of, after I yelled at him, I just went to the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. And I was like, Chris, what are you doing? What are you doing? That is dumb. And that motivated me to change. It motivated me to think before I act and to set those types of changes in motion. So all we have to do is put a mirror in front of you. So let me give you an example of that, how this works. So the mirror, there was with the mirror. So there's a really interesting study with self-awareness theory and body image. It was done by Martins et al. And what they did is they had gay men come into their lab. And I really like their use of gay men here because what the gay research has shown that gay men are more sensitive to how their bodies look than heterosexual men. All right. So for that reason, they brought these gay men in, and they had everyone stand in front of a mirror like in a dressing room. And in this dressing room, they had to either wear a full-on sweater. And you just saw the top of their body. So you either saw, so it was either a sweater, so you didn't see anything. It was really loose-fitting clothes because it's a sweater. So you couldn't see the outlines of their bodies. Or these gay men had to wear basically a swimsuit. So remember, you couldn't see anything below the waist with this mirror. So really, you literally saw their bare chest. And when you saw this bare chest, they saw their muscles, their body fat, their bodies, just everything. All right. Now, after the study was over, they were told. So after that was over, they were told, "Oh, the study's over. What we're going to do is we have to have you fill out some questionnaires." So they had these gay men sit at this at a chair by themselves. Everyone was ran individually. They had them sit at this chair, and in front of this chair was a table, and on the table was like a bowl of snacks. It was like Chex Mix, basically. And they're told, "Oh, I'll be right back. I got to do some stuff for the study. Sit, relax. Here's some snacks for you if you want to eat them. Just, take it easy and I'll be right back." And so the dependent variable was how much did they eat? How many of the snacks did they eat? And what they found, sure enough, was that those who were in the sweater condition ate significantly more than those in the swimsuit condition. And self-awareness theory predicts that, right? Self-awareness theory would say that if you're in the swimsuit, so everyone's looking at a mirror, but if you are in the swimsuit condition, now you are evaluating your body in terms of where you're at now physically compared to where you want to be physically. And that's going to influence your behavior. And if you're in the sweater condition, you don't have that. That cue, that comparison isn't made salient to you. And so therefore that you do see the differences there. All right, all you have to do is put a mirror in front of you. It's really cool. Now, culture plays into this as well. So what they have suggested is that there are cultural differences in self-awareness. So what's going to happen here is that what they have found is that people from interdependent cultures are in a constant state of self-awareness. So if you're from Asia or China or Mexico or Japan, Singapore, Vietnam, any of those places, what's going to happen is you're going to be constantly comparing yourself, where you're at, to these standards. And the reason why is because these authors suggest that interdependent people see themselves through the eyes of others. And so because of that, they're always trying to live up to someone else's expectations in addition to their own. So in a cool study by Hine in 2008, they had two independent variables here. The first was they had people from the USA or people from Japan do their study. The second was they were either placed in front of a mirror or not. Now, the dependent variable here is something called the actual to ideal discrepancy. And this is where it's a difference score. And it is the difference between where you're at and where you want to be. All right. If you score 0 on this difference score, that means you are perfect. Your actual self is perfectly in line with your ideal self. Everything is great. All right. Now, what they found in this particular case was the graph below. And what they see is that for the USA, the mirror manipulation works. So if you look here, this is USA and no mirror. This is USA with a mirror. And what you see is there is a significant difference here. All right. In addition to that, all right, so the mirror works, right, for the USA people. So what you also see is that the mirror in both the USA and Japan, those are the same. Basically the same means. There's no difference here. So P is greater than 0.05. There's no significant difference. And that tells us that it doesn't matter what culture you put the mirror in front of, you're gonna have issues, right? That your discrepancy is gonna be high, and that's bad. However, what I want to pay your attention to is this group right here. These are the Japanese participants who are not in front of a mirror. But look how high their bar is. I know if you look at the bar, it looks higher than, it looks higher than this group and looks higher than this group. But statistically, it's not. But what you see is that even when there's no mirror present, the Japanese people still had self-awareness issues. Still. Right? And that leads us to believe that those from interdependent cultures are indeed in a state of self-awareness. Right. Now we're going to stop here. What we have is 2 more sections of self-knowledge left. We have self-perception theory, and then we have social comparison theory, and then that's it. So the next 2 recordings will be those.